Final score in Orlando was Florida State 45, LSU 24. And there's going to be a lot of outlets today, a lot of people with a microphone that are going to overreact and say different things about LSU and they're fraudulent and they're not what, a lot of people projected them to be. Like, let's all calm down. We have a tradition here on this show. Typically, it's Tell the Truth Sunday, where we get in here on Sunday morning after the game's on Saturday and we talk about it, but we don't overreact. We look at what happened. We tell the truth about it, the good as well as the bad. And so was yesterday what anybody in Baton Rouge was expecting or predicting or wanted to happen? Of course not. Of course not. But there's still a lot to take away from this. So we're going to kind of just have a Tell the Truth Monday, if you will, right now about what happened yesterday from an LSU side of things and the way things turned out in the game against Florida State. Really quickly, though, make sure you're subscribed. College football, only college football on this very show. The bad from last night is very obvious. Like, it does not take a strong man to be critical about what LSU did last night. Interior physicality, especially running the football for LSU, was not there. Went into this game saying, if LSU's going to win, probably have to be multiple in the run game, meaning you get some help from the running game with the running back room in addition to Jayden Daniels and his legs. That wasn't there. That kind of hamstringed them, in my opinion, in terms of setting up what they wanted to set up in the pass game, even though Jayden Daniels threw for a heck of a lot of yards. You would have loved to see your best defensive player, Harold Perkins, be let loose a little bit more. And I understand the thought process, so I don't want to question Matt House. He makes a lot of money to coach defensive football. From the outside looking in, you felt a little bit like, man, Harold Perkins is such a just game wrecker potentially. Would love to see him maybe get after the quarterback a little bit more. They played him off the ball a little bit more. And again, I understand the thought process behind this, because if Jordan Travis were to get loose more frequently and utilize his legs, that could be something that's a game plan breaker for you. So I think having Harold Perkins there, for the most part, kept him at bay in that department. But the issue was the receivers for Florida State did what you were probably concerned they would do in the way that they won one-on-one. So again, doesn't take a brilliant football mind to look at what happened last night and say, yeah, LSU didn't fit that counter run very well. Yeah, LSU didn't have a sense of urgency in the second half, and that was why there was the run that Florida State had, going 31-7 in the second half. Yes, we would have liked to get points out of those drives if we're an LSU fan in the first half, where you go for it on fourth, don't get it. Hindsight's 20/20. The real frustration, though, I think, if you're sitting today in Baton Rouge looking at your football team, is that this wasn't one that snuck up on you. You know what I mean? Like, this wasn't a game where week 7 you're playing an opponent and you're a little bit banged up. You got to find a way to get up for it. Like, this was week 1 of the college football season. You had this one circled since clock hit 000s last year when that extra point got blocked. Like, this is one that you had every reason to get up for, every reason to play your best, and we didn't see that from LSU. The second half was really discouraging because of what we talked about with the lack of the sense of urgency. It wasn't an operation, especially defensively for LSU, where they bowed up and said, you know what, no, this stops now. We're going to be the reason why we turn this thing around and get back in this football game. Like, I didn't see that. I didn't see that trademark physicality that we've come to expect from LSU. I'm not saying it's not there. I'm not saying LSU isn't still a very good football team. In fact, I'm about to say the opposite right now. The fact that you didn't see it is frustrating, and it's concerning because, like I said, you had every reason to get up for it, but you didn't. But let's be very, very clear on something. This LSU football team is still very, very good. Just because that was the result last night in that game, if you play that game 10 times, I'm not so sure that it doesn't go LSU's way half the time. Like, that result last night was one of the very many that was in the realm of possibility, but I don't think we see that result again if you play that 10 times. At the very least, it's much, much closer. The thing with me for LSU is I don't question the personnel. I don't question what they have defensively with Harold Perkins. Yes, you are curious, I think, about how your secondary progresses, but put Mason Smith back in the lineup. Look at that defensive line from LSU. They got after them consistently last night. I thought, especially in that third quarter and end of the first half, like, I love the way they dialed it up. I thought they did a lot of things that were going to eventually start to break LSU's way. Now, credit Florida State. That's also a really good football team. It wasn't like LSU trotted out there and, got beat by some inferior opponent. That's a really good Florida State football team. So there's nothing to hang your head about. But you do look into that locker room. You do look into, the leadership of that team. And I'm not knocking Brian Kelly at all here, so hear me very clearly. The frustrating thing is it still looks like they are trying to put together the approach internally and the culture and the standards, all that consistently. Now, that's what great teams do. So for LSU to reach their goals of winning the SEC and competing for national championships, like that's what has to be put into place now. And that's why Brian Kelly's there. So don't worry about that. But the frustrating thing is I think there was a thought going into this game that maybe LSU was a bit further along in that department than what was displayed on the field. And so now it falls back on that leadership. It falls back on Brian Kelly. It falls back on, Malik Neighbors, Kyron Lacey, like people within that locker room, people within that football team that impact the outcome on the field to get everybody in that locker room on the same page. Mekhi Wingo being one of those guys, Will Campbell being one of those guys, the leaders in that locker room to say, okay, hey, what do we want to be? We got to look in the mirror right now, decide what do we want to be going forward. And it sounds bizarre, and I don't want to be overly optimistic and overly positive, but like this could be a fork in the road moment for LSU, like we saw last year against Tennessee, where they say, you know what? That ain't us. That ain't us. That final result, that stings. We're going to let it sting. And the funny thing about a little wound, taking a little cut, it can motivate you. It can turn it around. It can be the reason why you're successful the rest of the way. Now, you hate it happened week one. You hate it happened the way that it did. But at the exact same token, LSU's not out of the fight for anything they want to accomplish. We talked about this being a roadmap setting game for both teams. For LSU, the roadmap is clear now. You are in fight or flight mode. You are in playoff mode. Bad news, got to play Bama, got to play Ole Miss, got to play A&M. Like you got to go through the rest of the SEC West now to get to where you want to accomplish, and you got to do it unblemished to win the SEC likely and to be a college football playoff team more certainly. I guess you don't have to go perfect through the SEC, but you probably want to accomplish everything you want to accomplish. So here's the deal. They still have the roster. They still have the Jimmies and Joes to accomplish what they want to accomplish. For me, it's all internal, and it's all everybody in that locker room, everybody that's a leader in that locker room, everybody buying in and saying, you know what? We can't have this sporadic display anymore. This can't be what we're going to do going forward. Because we've seen it before. We saw it against Tennessee. We saw it against A&M to end the year. We've seen LSU have times where they it feels like take their eye off the ball, but they're talented enough to get back on the horse and go after everything they want to go after. So going back to the good news, you saw some good things from Jayden Daniels last night. Saw some receivers make some plays. I thought Deuce Chestnut actually looked pretty good for the most part at times. I'm not saying it's all solved. I'm not saying you're in a position where you can go and win national championship kind of football based on what you did last night. But to say there's not the parts and to write off LSU based on what happened last night, I think is irresponsible. And we're not going to do it on this very show. So for LSU, it's your choice now. Do you make this the thing that is going to cause you to, get in the tank and feel sorry for yourself and start pointing fingers? Or is it a wake-up call to, hey, we're a really good football team. There's good stuff on tape over there. We're better than how we played last night if we're LSU. Let's turn it around. Let's go out and use that disappointment the rest of the season, take it on everybody else, and find ourselves where we want to find ourselves at the end of the season. So I can't wait to watch it. I promise you Brian Kelly will provide every opportunity for this team to respond with how he game plans and how he brings the rest of the staff along with him. I can't wait to watch it. So for LSU, disappointing, yes, but if we're telling the truth about this team on this Monday, their story and their script is very far from being over and being written. We're live tomorrow morning, Tuesday, 11 a.m. Eastern. Also live the day after and the day after that. So Wednesday, Thursday, 11 a.m. Eastern. Make sure you're here. Get in the live chat. We'll talk some ball. Be a real good time. Going to pick all the games from week 2. Going to be a blast. We appreciate y'all. We love y'all. We're going to keep this party rolling. We will see y'all next time. Hey y'all, thanks so much for watching. Subscribe to the channel here to make sure you don't miss an episode of The Hard Count. Also be sure to check out other videos on the On3 YouTube channel.